Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope that your first week of class went well, and now we're going to get into our second week of class. Can you believe it? Let's go. So this week is all about graphing. And before we talk about graphing, I think it's really important that we talk about what a graph is supposed to represent, and that's data. So the types of data that we talked about last week, we have two types. So the first, that's the quantitative. Quantitative data is number data. Quantitative data is numbers. Anything with numbers, really. It's usually statistics. Like, as an example, like, I don't know, 8 tomatoes. Yeah, that's what we called last week too. That's good. Tomato plants. The second type of data, that's qualitative. Qualitative data is non-numerical. We might call this categorical. Categorical referring to like categories. So like, if we want to throw it back to last week too, let's talk about tomato plants again, like red tomatoes. The qualitative data point there is the color red. So there's data. And throwing it back a little bit more to last week, because why not? Living in the past, that's great. And we've already discussed some of this, but it's important we go back because these are bits of information that are important for the assembly of our graph. Okay, so for variables, we have three types. Our first type is the independent variable. Or like IV. Your independent variable is the factor that's being manipulated. Or changed, the thing that's different between the groups. So the independent variable. We also can think of an example of the independent variable. So here's our example. Let's say we're going to grow bacteria at different temperatures. So those different temperatures that we grow our bacteria at, yeah, that's an independent variable. Bacterial growth at different temperatures. The different temperatures, that's the independent variable. The next type of variable is the dependent variable. That's number 2. Or DV. The dependent variable, that's the result, the outcome, what you're measuring. The outcome or what you're measuring. So in our example of bacteria growth at different temperatures, the outcome of bacteria growth at different temperatures would be the amount of growth that happens. Bacterial growth. Nice. The last type of variable I want to talk about is the third type, which is control. Control variable. The control variable is the one that's kept the same in all the groups. kept the same in all the groups. So in our bacteria example, when you grow bacteria, you grow them in a little petri dish. So it would be, you want to grow them in the same type of petri dish. So the type of petri dish. Maybe the room, you want to keep them in the same room. You want to provide them the same nutrients. Oh, that doesn't look like it says nutrients. Let's erase that. The type of nutrients. So basically, the point of the control variable is that the only thing that you're changing, that you should be changing, is your independent variable. We want the independent variable to be the only thing changing. That way, when we have our outcome, it's because of the independent variable. That's the change that caused the difference, and not any of this other stuff. The type of dish, the nutrients. We don't want any of that affecting our outcome. Okay, so now on to graphing. So graphing. We have a couple of types of graphs we can talk about. We'll talk about 4 main ones in this class because they're really commonly used in biology, but also because these are just some really good categories to have in our brain. Okay, so first is pie chart. Pie chart is used when you want to show different proportions of a whole. Different proportions of a whole. Typically it's done in percentages. Usually percentages. So I can draw you an example of a pie chart here. All right. Let's think, and I'll just make this up as I'm going here. So I have my circle. Pie chart's usually a circle. I'll make it a bigger circle. So I can call this pie chart, I don't know, time, what I'm doing while I'm studying. How about that? Well, and I'm going to quote studying. I don't know about you, but this is me at least. So while I'm studying, here's what happens. So I spend, I don't know, maybe a third of my time, not a quarter of my time probably. I spend a quarter of my time, I'll color this in here. Spend a quarter of my time, I don't know, watching TV. Maybe I'll spend another little bit of my time cleaning random stuff. I always think about the dirty things in my house when I have to actually do studying. So cleaning random stuff, that's good. Maybe I'll use pink. I spend another good amount of time chatting with my friends, like in my study group, or I'll text my friends, be like, hey, let's catch up, and I'm supposed to be studying. Yeah, it shouldn't happen that way, but it does. And then maybe I'll eat something. That's good. Eating is good. I'll use black for that. And then in green, well, this is studying, just that little bit. Yeah, that's a pie chart, good enough. So this is studying. There's my pie chart. It could be a whole lot more pretty. Let's make these borders a little bit more fancy. How about that? Oops. In black. There we go. There's my pie chart of what I'm doing while I'm studying. And there's tons of examples online. You can Google it or check your textbook if you want to. Tons of examples of this. Okay, pie chart. Now let's do a histogram. A histogram is for when you want to use or show different frequencies. When you have different frequencies. When you have different frequencies. So I'll go ahead and pause the recording. I'll draw you an example. We'll come back. All right, we're back. So I've drawn this example here, like quiz 1 grades. So everybody got such and such percent. Let's say that most of the class was in the A range. That's great. In the B range and the C range, there's different frequencies, different numbers of students achieving each of those grades on quiz 1. Okay, now moving on to a bar graph. I've already drawn an example here for the sake of time, but a bar graph is used when the dependent variable or the independent variable is categorical, quantitative, and the other, either dependent or independent variable, is quantitative. Number data. So here's an example of red, white, and pink flowers in my garden. So if I were to go into my garden and I only have these 3 types of flowers in my garden, red and white and pink, I could go and count those. And so that, there we go, that's fun. Bar graph. And then the last graph that we're going to talk about is a line graph. So this is when both the dependent variable and the independent variable are quantitative. This shows the relationship between variables. Great. So we have these kinds of graphs, and of course there's more graphs we could talk about, but these are really common ones that we'll see throughout the semester. Okay, so line graphs. When talking about graphs, let's say more about graphs. More about graphs. Just some things to know. The independent variable goes on the x-axis. That's the horizontal one. So the independent variable goes on the x-axis, but that means that the dependent variable goes on the y-axis. That's the vertical axis. Some things that graphs also need are a title. The title is descriptive. It tells you what you are looking at. That's good. And lastly, if you also need a key. A key tells you what different elements stand for. So if I scroll up and I see this line graph, I have 6-month sales, for example. If I were to have another tracker of 6-month sales in apples and 6-month sales in bananas, then I could label that. So let's say that my banana sales are just through the roof. They're just increasing. So they just increase and then they maybe go down and then they go back up, and you get the point here. So I would say that red, my key would be banana sales. And in black, that would be my Apple sales. That's my key. That's good enough. So a key, it tells you what the elements stand for. So like if you have more than one graph or more than one line on your graph. Okay, that is graphing. We have one more lecture for this week, and that'll do it.